Hello, good
Hi, Jen.
morning or almost afternoon for you.
I know. Time ticks. Time ticks. You look
It really
lovely
does.
today. I love
Thank
your.
you.
You were just telling me how you fixed your hair. You look lovely.
Yes, with having being just tired from COVID, I've just let it, washed it and just let it do whatever. And so I actually blow dried it today, and that was hard. It
I
was
can imagine.
tiring. It was
I
tiring.
can imagine.
And
Are
it doesn't
you
take me that long. Like I'm sure it takes you much longer to blow dry your hair than it does
Jen?
me.
Okay, I'm going to share. This is a marketing tip of what I do. Okay, people. A lot of people go, "How do you read so many books? How do you do da da da?" Well, I hate getting ready in the morning. Like hate it.
Yes. I'm with you. It just like feels like a waste of time, right?
Oh, I hate it. Now I hate it, but I absolutely love taking a shower.
Yeah.
So there are days
Yes.
I'm like with like those people who don't, wash their hair daily and use like dry shampoo. I try it, Jen.
Not
But
for you.
it's beyond that, I have to that sets me in the morning. Well, so all that to be said, while I am fixing my hair, because I have very thick hair and it's
Yes.
a process, I that's when I read books. And
Yeah.
that's when I have perfected the process of if it's a physical book, how to use my
Yeah.
phone to hold the
I
book
was
open.
gonna say, how do you hold it open? Have you seen they make leather
Yes, I have.
weights?
Yes.
I need to get some of those for that
I thought
reason,
about it.
right? Because I use my phone sometimes too.
I know.
So,
And inevitably the phone falls and then things fall in my sink and it's a journey, right?
mhm.
But that's why I love my Remarkable so much because if I'm
Yes.
doing client work,
You
my
can just take
Remarkable,
notes.
yeah, it's just the books on here and I can
Yeah.
underline stuff while I'm blow drying my hair. And it's not just blow
Yes.
drying. I mean, my hair's naturally curly, wavy.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
blow dry and then I have to
And
straighten
straighten. Yeah.
every day. Eh. So that's my tip is if you want to be effective, sometimes you can't, pray for maybe sometimes you can't pray for more time in the day, but you can find more time by taking advantage of the time that you currently have.
It's so funny because I don't know that you're old enough to have remembered to watch the Jetsons,
Oh, are
but
you
back
kidding? I
did
love
you watch
the
the
Jetsons.
Jetsons? Okay, so,
Yeah.
the Jetsons, they would have the TV phone calls, right? Like we have FaceTime or Zoom, to be honest,
Yeah.
and, I remember thinking as a kid, no woman would like that because, you gotta do the hair and the makeup and stuff, but remember she had the little mask that she could just put
Yes.
on with her everything done, like, she'd be all like, "I'm just getting out of bed," she'd put the mask on. That's the technology I want.
You
Where's
know,
the mask?
where is it? Because I need it. Yeah, because I hate doing makeup too. Like I hate
It's a
everything
pain.
about
It's just a
everything.
pain. I know some people love it, but
It is
I like
not a
the results.
relaxing
But
process.
no, it's not for me either, and I don't spend a ton of time on it. I don't have very thick hair, so none of this takes me very long, but I'm with you. If I could just roll out of bed and be ready to go, I'd be happy with that. I mean, I love the shower, the bath. My problem is I get in a mode in the shower and I lose all track of time, and
Oh.
I could stand in there forever, and I have to go, okay, you got to move. You can't just sit here and it's like an automatic trigger. My brain starts just
Yes,
churning ideas and thoughts and
yes,
stuff. And, people always talk about they get great ideas in the
I do.
shower. And
Oh,
I think it's
got a
true.
tip for you. Got a tip for you.
Okay.
Um, I also, while I'm in the shower, listen to podcasts, okay,
Yeah.
which I literally so our shower has a bench and it's far enough away that it doesn't get wet.
Okay. Yeah.
So I bring the phone in the shower with me. But
Yeah.
if you could, there's a solution, Jen, somewhere, somehow. If you could get where you could, while you're in the shower, turn on whatever app that's out there,
Yeah.
and when that brilliant idea comes, you speak it, and your phone
Oh,
captures it.
yes. Yes. The other thing is, they make those waterproof boards that you could
Yes.
put in the shower. I just don't like the look of them, but I have thought of that and challenged myself to think about, but anyways, it's an interesting thing, right? People say when you're stuck, and I have totally done this with writing projects, gotten up, taken a walk, even if I'm just like pacing around the house or the living room, or you get in the shower or whatever, it
Mhm.
breaks it up so you can go in and start getting those ideas flowing in a different
Exactly.
situation.
I definitely find, and I don't know if it's the warmth of a shower or a bath, but there is, it releases probably some chemical
Yeah,
inside it and
something.
gets my brain going. So I find my
Yeah.
best ideas happen when I'm in the shower or the bath. I take a bath every night.
Yeah.
Like our water bill could probably, be split in half if I didn't, or I found a way to save the water, but that's a story for another day. And then when I'm driving down the road, my kids enjoy watching TV or like chatting with something. And so I am left to my own devices, and that is and I'm like, great, I can't write. So I have been known to go to my iPhone notes and dictate.
Yes.
And I've written entire podcast episodes in the car driving to pick up the kids from school because it just hits. It's like, I think it's because in those times, Jen, and this is actually it's like we planned it, a really good conduit to the topic today. I think it's during times like that, it's harder for us to be inundated by other external stimuli.
Yes.
Right. So like you can't be getting emails, or if you do and you're driving, you shouldn't look at them. Or, you can't be, you don't want somebody on the phone with you while you're in the shower. Although I have done that with my mom.
There's only a few people you can do that with.
I'm like, you don't want to know, Mom. It's all good. I'm being a multitasker today. But the reality is like in these moments, right, where it's just you are giving yourself space where others can't take from it. And today's topic is a part 2 of last week, where we talked about planning for next year, and if writing a book, and a marketable book especially, is on your to-do list. Last week we talked about the things you need to think about to really make sure your book is marketable. And today I thought we would spend some time talking about, great, those things. How do you get the book out of you? And maybe it's getting a waterproof board for your shower, or an app to allow you to do. But I think the juice of what we just discussed, like the key takeaway, in my opinion, is the fact that you have to set aside time or create boundaries where you do not allow external stimuli to come in and rob the time that you have for something you have deemed a priority.
Yes. And I think that is a key part of it. We are so, everybody can reach us. When I was out with COVID, I had an out of office on my email, but people could reach me through Slack. People could text me. People can reach me through every social media app that you can't put out of offices on. Right. And so you start thinking about all the ways people can get to you all the time. There's very few places people can no longer get to you, like the shower. Usually, sometimes if you're driving, they're more limited, right? People can still call you when you're driving. But it's I think that's a huge part of the problem is creativity. It needs some time. I call it the compost pile, right? It needs some time to sit and to change from the carrot tops and the eggshells and the coffee grounds into that beautiful soil amendment that wonderful things can grow from. And that is a process.
I love it. This is so funny. And those listening, Jen and I literally we have a topic, but we don't, and we have like a couple points, but we just let it roll. So when we make a comment like, oh, we planned that, it's an inside joke because we didn't. It's just proof that we have synergy in how we see life. And you're talking about this compost pile. And I, in my previous world, when I was focused on my first 2 books around finding perspective and kind of shifting and sifting, I shared a lot, a specific story with people. You've been to the house. You were at the house when it wasn't veggie growing season. In fact, I think our tomatoes were about half dead. But there was a time that in our previous home that people would say, well, oh my gosh, Stephanie, how is your garden so great? Because we have a really big garden at our old house. We do a bigger one now. And I would say, oh my gosh, are you kidding? It's the manure. And I'm like, dude, the rest of the world forgets about, the garden in the winter time. And that's when we cover it in horse leftovers. And it composts.
Yes. When I was when I lived in Michigan, we would get milk from a local dairy, and then they would let you come and get all of the cow droppings, mixed with the hay and everything, right? The grass and all that, very natural and part of the whole cycle. And you would get it, you throw it on your garden. And I mean, it's just fantastic. And there is some sort of creative equivalent to that, right? Like the movies you watch, the books you read, podcasts you listen to, you're refilling that creative well. And that it's over time that feeds into your ability to produce good work. And if you are starving yourself of that because you're going busy, 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 then you don't have any time for that to refill. You like just pull from it all the time with nothing to refill it. And I went to a mineral springs this weekend with a friend of mine. They have all these different mineral pools, a saline pool, hot and cold pool. Oh, the cold. That was very brief.
Is this close to you? So like when I visit, can you take me?
Yes, it's like an hour away. It's fantastic. And it's all like green, and everything's kind of in these little nooks, and it's just super, super relaxing. There's a mud bath. That was really kind of fun. I felt like an 8-year-old playing in the mud. But it was so relaxing. I mean, we came out of there, and they have massages and stuff. I didn't do any of that, but I felt like I had a massage just from, I mean, you can't do anything. You cannot work when you're in a hot mineral bath, right?
So
so I went with my friend, and so of course the minerals and stuff are very nourishing to your body, and they pull the toxins out, and whatever magic that it does. But just we were talking about, this is a great way to come with some writer friends and just brainstorm and just chat, because it's that organic conversation of playing off of each other. And so she and I spent some time talking about that and thinking about it, but it was very unstructured and in nature and all that stuff. And I felt like this needs to happen like every quarter, because you need that time to refill when and most of us that are writing have other obligations. Like we can't, like writing is not our full-time thing, as much as we would love that to be. It's just very, very rare. So writing ends up happening kind of in the margins of life. And we do have to block off time for it, but we also have to block off time for doing things that doesn't look like you're doing anything, like watching a movie or sitting in a tub or whatever it is that is refilling that creative well.
So this summer, I was having like exhaustion moments, and my husband could tell. And he surprised me with a weekend getaway. And I don't know how this has happened, but this year the mountains have become our place. I don't know why, because maybe it's like 2 hours from our home and we can go for a day and go hiking and all's good. So I bring my computer, and I had plans, and so we had someone watching the kids, and I was going to do some work, but I was going to do it in like a different space. And I get there, and Jen, I have my own internet. Like my business has its own internet because I live in the country with no internet. And I carry it everywhere with me. Like it's like gold. Okay. I get there and my own internet doesn't work. And I'm like, this is a problem. And I had like a panic moment for a hot minute. And I looked at my husband and I'm like, I probably shouldn't be working this weekend anyways.
It's a sign.
Right. But you know what happened? Because I had no internet. I woke up one morning with this weird inspiration. And that's when I wrote like 20 or 30,000 words on this book. Like it just poured out of me. Like it was the fact that even though there are other demands, there was a space where I didn't know about it. So the stuff that was inside that was begging to get out could. And I'm a big believer in that. So so like, I guess tip number 1 is you have to make time.
You have to make time somehow.
Right. Like you need to not just make time saying, I'm going to do an hour a day. You need to do it in a way that provides you the ability of turning off external stimuli. So a couple tips, like I have on my phone, you mentioned all the ways people can get a hold of you. That is quite annoying, Jen.
It is.
To be effective, like this 24-hour news cycle and all these things, 24-hour business, all it's just annoying. So remember, if you hear nothing else today, know that the world can have their kind of processes and ideas, and you get to choose how that fits in there. So I do not get any notifications on my phone. I made that shift, and it's like, oh my, it was so freeing, right? Yes. Turn them off.
Yep.
Then you choose.
Turn off the little bubbles that tell you how many emails you have, so you don't have to be stressed by that, right? All that stuff is off. I don't
turn it all off, because that
I'll
just
know when I go
anxiety. Yes.
It does. It
It's
creates a
funny.
lot of anxiety. Yeah.
And the other thing is, depending upon the demands other people have or the notifications, one of two things is happening. Number one, when you reply and respond all the time, you're creating an expectation for other people.
Yes. Yeah.
So stop doing that. And number two, if the notifications are to trigger for you, oh, well, somebody liked something, stop that too, because that form of acknowledgement is not real. Let it go, people. Let it go. Stop the comparison.
Right. I think there's a dopamine cycle there that needs
Yep.
to get broken. There's a lot of people have talked a lot about the brain science behind that, but it's very similar to like gambling or other addictive kind of behavior. So it can be very hard to break. But
Yep.
if you want some creative space in your world, you have to do something like that. One of the things I talk to my writer folks about is you want to trigger, use that brain science, but use it in your favor. So something that triggers, this is creative time, this is writing time. So wherever that is, some people do need to like leave the house and go to a coffee shop, 2 hours on Saturday. Some people have a space in their home. So wherever it is, think about the space where you're going to do your writing and see what you can do with that. So for example, think of your 5 senses. Can you have something that in the 5 senses that you only do when you write? So smell, right? So some people, if you have an office, you can burn a candle, you can diffuse certain smells like peppermint and stuff. Those are like supposed to be stimulating to help you think. Even if you're going to like a coffee shop, you could use like a scented hand lotion or a essential oil or something, right? Just a little something that, I mean, smell is super powerful at a subconscious level. So if you can think of a smell that you only use during writing time, that is a fantastic way to trigger your brain to say, this is creative time. Same thing with taste, right? Is there a mint or a gum that you only use when you're writing? Or a tea? We got the same mugs today, right?
Yes, we do.
Or a certain snack, something like that you only do with writing. Visually, of course, this is your space, right? So do you have almost all writing programs and computers have an isolation mode or a composition mode, focus mode, where everything goes away other than what you're working on. So perhaps you do that. Perhaps you create a vision board, a physical one or a Pinterest one, and you spend a few minutes looking at that and getting realigned to what you're trying to do, what you want to accomplish before you get in there. Hearing, right? So earbuds, some people love music, some people hate it, but do a play. If you are a music person, do a playlist you only listen to while you're writing. Or maybe nature sounds, right?
I have to give a tip. I don't know this, so I don't know this podcast people personally, but I have found, for me, I didn't even know this, you just triggered it. Relaxing white noise. Okay.
Yes, right. There's a lot of white noise things. There's YouTubes, there's podcasts, there's a lot of stuff. Find the thing but only do it
when you're
writing. So it's another trigger. And then finally is touch. Well, of course we have our keyboards, but we do those with all sorts of things. You can't see right now. I'm playing with rubber band. I'm doing this because this is my hand exercise, but I have a fidget ball. I used to have sea glass.
Get my pins out and I start breaking my pins apart. If you ever notice, I'm always holding a pin so that I can do that.
So find something. And again, whatever it is, there's lots of fidget toys in the world, or maybe it's I have this is a domino, but it says, write those books on it.
Oh, I love
and it's the idea of the first domino. What's the first domino you need to do to have the domino effect, right? And so, a little thing that is inspiring for you, but like I had sea glass I would fidget with or what, because you're not going to be writing all the time. You'll be thinking it sometimes. So you'll need something to play with.
I love that. So, I'm also a doodler. I think I'll show you some of my doodles I doodle now the same thing. The best thing that ever happened to me is a world that turned virtual, because when I would work in person in my previous careers, people would be like, stop fidgeting, stop doing this. And it's like, oh, no, it's not that I'm nervous. It's literally, or
you're
doodling. It actually helps me listen.
Yes. Me too. Absolutely. If
Yeah.
I'm doing something with my hands, it's like I'm actually taking what I'm hearing and putting it into a tangible
Mhm.
form.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I'm a big doodler
I
as
love
well.
that. I love all that, Jen. Those are all beautiful, and they're things that I didn't realize I was doing or that have
Yeah.
done. But if you do it purposefully, it's going to help you make sure that book comes to life. Now, I want to
Hmm.
pick your brain about, all right, so now we know that the importance of time and setting it aside and creating an experience that triggers creativity. What about the content? How would you make a recommendation? Because I mean, and I know there's 1,000 ways you can do it, and each is unique to individuals, but I have a lot of people ask me, well, where do I start? And,
Right.
should I start in the beginning, whatever. And I have some ideas, but this is
Mhm.
your jam. And I'm just curious, what would you say, either from like a layout or content standpoint, would be a tip or two that you would recommend?
Well, I think the biggest mistake people make is they think you start at the beginning and
Yeah.
you just write the book all the way through.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that does not happen. And that'll just make you really frustrated. I
Yes.
like to think of it as layers
Mhm.
or like as a skeleton. First you do the bones, then you put the muscles, then you put the skin on it and make it pretty. But think about layers. If you go back to our previous sessions, series when we did the 5 questions
Mhm.
you need to answer about your book, I like
Yes.
to have people do those and think of them as like they're like big rocks. And
Yeah.
so start answering some of those questions, and those are kind of creating the skeleton that you have. And then you're going to refine that as
Yeah.
you go along. The other thing I recommend as part of those is to do a brain dump,
Yeah.
right? Just whiteboard, paper, whatever, and just everything you think you might want to talk about, put it down
Yep.
and just get it all out there. Don't worry about order or anything like that. And then and you might take a couple days to do this.
Mhm.
But once you have, okay, I think I have everything I want to say about this subject, then you start looking at what are the things that can be grouped together. And
Yep.
then you start putting, kind of little chunks of areas together, right? So you've got little groupings. So maybe you take another piece of paper and you start thinking about the groupings. And then that gives you that's giving you your chapters and your subheadings kind of under those thinking. And then you just then you start thinking about how does this flow? How
Mm.
does it flow? What is the journey I want to take the reader on? What endpoint do I want to get them to?
Right.
And that helps you construct the thing there. And so then now you've got, when you sit down to write, now you have something to write about, because there's nothing worse than looking at that blank page and going, I don't know what I'm supposed to write about today. Well,
Yeah.
now you have your chapter, you have your subheadings, you know the things you want to talk about. And so that just makes it so much easier,
Yep.
other than, don't ever, I mean, even in fiction, there's a lot of work that goes in before I sit down to write the book. Yes, I pretty much do. When I get to the writing point, I do write chronologically. Do I know
Right.
people that skip around? I do, but I do all those, I answer all those questions, and I spend usually a month ahead of time working out what
Mhm.
are these people's issues, what's going on, and usually have about 100 to 120 points of things that are going to happen in the book before I actually start writing it, so I know where I'm going. So every time I sit down to write, I know what point I have to get to next. And
Right.
so,
Yeah.
it just is a lot easier when you have a roadmap. And the same thing
Yeah.
happens, when we're talking about nonfiction too. You need to have this roadmap. And so think about writing in layers,
Mm.
and knowing that when you're writing something, you're just getting your thoughts down. This does
Yeah.
not have to be perfect. You're
No.
not writing the final version of it. You just want to get your thoughts down, so you have, again, that kind of rough skeleton, so you can look at it and go, okay, is this the order I want? Does this make sense? Sometimes you're writing something, you go in a different direction, or whatever. So hold all of that really loosely, because what'll happen is if you get so caught up in trying to make the words perfect on the page, you just start spinning
Oh,
your wheels. You don't
yeah.
have enough to know if it's perfect yet or not. You got to
Oh,
have a lot in there before you know, do I want to keep this? Should I move it? Is it worth refining? You
yeah.
need a bunch down there.
You
So
need to get started. Yeah. So
yeah.
I'll share a couple of things that I've done and that I've seen, especially in the nonfiction space. I can imagine fiction, with everything you were saying, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of work in the fiction world. And I think it's amazing. But if you and you could leverage a lot of that in both. But there's a couple of things I've utilized that might be helpful. The first was my first book was a blog to book book. I didn't realize it was a blog to book book.
Right.
But it was a blog to book book, meaning I sat down when I decided to do it, and I looked at all the content I had.
Yes.
And I started to go, what are the commonalities?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And before I knew it, I had a working manuscript of stuff I'd been sharing with the world and I'd been crafting over time. That is awesome, because then you can identify the gaps and focus your energy and writing kind of energy there. So I always like that, because that's smarter, not harder work.
And if you're a thought leader, if you've been posting on social media, if you have website content, you probably have more content already written than you know.
Yeah.
Like you probably have a lot there already. Yes, it's not going to stay necessarily in that same form, but you've talked about this and you can kind of plug some stuff in and then you can massage it. You probably have a lot there that you just don't know about. And so do not waste that. Make sure you're using that, because that's, like you said, work smarter, not harder, right?
Right. The other thing that I'm doing now with my fourth book, which is a memoir, is I've found at this point, when I sit down to write, I'm a divine inspired writer, meaning when it's time, God tells me, and then it just flows. And so I have found that I have to know kind of all the opportunities, but when I'm ready to sit down and write, I can look at the structure and figure out what feels right to fill in. I'll give you, for instance, I know what I'm writing about for this book is a chronological story. So the meat of it actually has to go in order, or the flow feels off. However, I sat down one day and Jen, I wrote the best about the author section, because I knew I needed it. And many people think that the about the author should be the same for everyone. I find that as beautiful, fun marketing opportunities, and I get creative. I mean, now I look back and go, how did that come out? That is like such a cool about the author. But it's because that day I'm like, I'm ready to write. What can I write about? Or my acknowledgments, or, I noticed in this particular book where I'm talking about a health condition that I have, I realized I needed to do at the end an interview with my husband and an interview with my doctor for a medical perspective and for a caregiver and a medical professional. Well, I sat down and was able to write those. Now my manuscript's not done, but I was inspired and I got a surge that day. So I have found, like you shared, knowing your skeleton allows you sometimes to jump depending upon what you're motivated with that day.
Yeah. Find the part that's going to be fun, or that is going to be, you think this is going to be easy. Oh, this might not come till chapter 8, but I really know that, or I just had that conversation the other day. It's fresh in my mind. Feel free to write it. Yes, you might, futz with it by the time you get there, whatever, that's fine. But a lot of times once you start writing the part that's easy, then you find yourself being able to go to the part that's more difficult. And if you are more of an outline person, I worked with a gal who had a very, very detailed table of contents outline. So she could jump around and do the parts that were easier and then move into the hard parts later. And so if that works with your book that you're writing, and even in memoir, like you're saying, you can do, because you're writing about specific instances, there might be a story that you're like, I feel like today is the day I want to write that story. And so definitely leverage where you have the most energy. Again, that's working smarter, not harder. Go to the place that's easiest, because I tell people, and anywhere that has lived in the snow understands this. When you have the snowplow come down the road and they push this big berm of snow over your driveway. It's just huge, right? And if you don't go out there and get rid of it, it turns into this icy mess that you cannot get over. Now, I've only had 4-wheel drive cars when I lived in the snow, so it never really mattered. But if you have like a Honda or something, you're never going to get in your driveway, right? You can't get over that.
No.
I think that hump there is also like a creative hump. That when you first sit down to write, it's like this, it's just hard. It's hard to get over it. Once you get over it, then it's smooth sailing and you can get going. But those first 15, 20, 30 minutes sometimes are really hard to get over. So anything you can do to make that easier, to get over that snowplow, do it.
Sometimes that's like a writing prompt. You can go on YouTube,
Yes.
I'm sure, and find one where
Yeah.
you could just look at something totally abstract and be inspired to just get your juices flowing.
And there are
I
plenty of
found
people
that
who totally believe in journaling, the morning pages, journal pages in the morning to just get it flowing. I think that can be a really great technique. So make it easy on yourself. Do what is easy. It's totally fine to be easy.
Yes, I love that. Oh my gosh, Jen, this is like jam-packed with stuff. Well, I am excited. Next week, we're pivoting to if you are planning to market your book specifically. So we will
Yes.
talk a little bit about that. I was thinking about what book to highlight this week, and the one I'm highlighting actually might appear like it has no relation to our topic. However, it does because
It always does.
it always does. You cannot provide your best writing and your best book if you don't care for you. And I
Yes.
recently had the ability and the opportunity to work with an amazing author who has written a book about hormones and understanding hormones and
Mm-hmm.
hormone replacement.
Yes.
Her book is called The Truth About Hormone Replacement. And anyways, it's crazy because there's so many stigmas out there around it. But there's a quote that I pulled out, and she totally demythifies. Is that a word, Jen? But I'm making it.
Yes, we'll make it a word.
Gets rid of the myths around understanding hormone replacement, especially the right types of hormones. But she specifically says that a healthy immune system is critical to our survival. And when we think of hormone replacement therapy and just our own hormones, we don't always realize that if you don't have your hormones in check, your immune system is not poised to kick things like, oh, I don't know, that COVID that you might have had a couple weeks ago,
right? Yeah.
which becomes a domino effect.
Yeah.
So I've truly enjoyed reading this book and learning, and it's just I think an added benefit that you and I get to do because we get to dig deep into so many different books.
We do. It's the best part, right?
Yes.
Really cool people with really cool topics they're talking about. And I think that's true. Your body, I was telling my team yesterday, this is your factory, right? If the factory shuts down, there's no production.
It doesn't.
You have to keep the factory maintained.
Yeah, well, and I know I alluded a little bit to my newest book, but the reality is my health condition is because of a hormone imbalance. So I have hypersomnia it's likely narcolepsy, and which is really weird that nobody would think, right? But they have found it is a hormone imbalance in your brain that causes it. Well, listen, before my hormones were before I had any treatment plan for my diagnosis, there were days I didn't know, Jen, if I was going to wake up and be functional. And so, yes, if you don't care for your body, you will never be able to do the why at which you've chosen to actually write a book and share it. So care for you, pour into you, turn off the notifications. Did you just hear one on my
Yeah, I did.
Deleted all these, but I got one. It's like that was planned, but it wasn't. Turn that off. Don't let the world tell you what you need. You know what you need. Give yourself the time, create the space, leverage a layout or a format or a flow, and don't let the snow plow hump hold you back. Like charge through because charge through in the way you need to because somebody needs your book. Yes. Got to get it out next year, people. Don't wait.
That's right. That's right.
All right, Jen.
And authors, your words have power, your message has power, and you have power. So we invite you to take that message to the page and beyond as you join us here this week as we talk all things of books and marketing.
See you next week, people.
Bye-bye.
Bye.